There's debt, there's destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
There's a lot of people having anger. There's a lot of people who are upset, enraged to find out about this possibility. Again, nothing has been deemed as a certainty yet, but Jimmy Dore is potentially maybe running in 2024 with the People's Party. So what is going on? So let's pull up this at least link from the People's Party. Now, there's a lot to take away from this statement here, and I do have a statement from Jimmy Dore himself in regards to what was posted recently by the People's Party. So let's talk about it. Jimmy Dore is considering running for president. He could win. It's a dark time in America, and it's getting worse. Millions lack food and health care and living paycheck to paycheck. Poverty wages now gutted by inflation. Eviction and homelessness sweep every city. Desperation so deep it drives people to opioid addiction and mass murder-suicide. The looming fall of the dollar and depression. A dying empire lashing out for war with not one but two nuclear powers. The major left-wing party in this country leading the charge for annihilation and censorship. Thankfully, I and many others have recently found real hope and joy in the prospect that Jimmy Dore could run for president of the United States. Jimmy has been considering a run for president with the People's Party for the past several weeks. We've been discussing it with him and Steph and have developed a 50-state campaign and ballot access plan with organizers leading ballot access attorneys. The crowds in Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City erupted in cheers when Jimmy surprised everyone at his live stand-up shows last month when he said, "I'm thinking of running for president," and took town hall style questions for the first time. Which I have to say, all right, people are excited. Because honestly, let's take a pause here. How many of us are really excited for the so predictable politicians giving out their gas answers, their lack of passion in regards towards what they could do for the American people? I mean, I think it's time for something new. I think it's time for something different. What, Bernie Sanders running again in 2024? Don't worry, we'll be talking about that later on in the show and how pathetic that whole idea is. Not once, but twice, now 3 times. Bernie, really? Anyways, with that being said, continuing on, that weekend, Jackson Hinkle, again, good friend of the show, who's being wrongly censored by PayPal and Venmo, told him he should run for president live on Jimmy's show, and Jimmy said he's considering it. Then asked Chris Hedges what would happen if he was to run for president on air. And on June 3rd, I joined Jimmy and Steph in studio and told them, all of their supporters, why he needs to run. We discussed it for the last half of the segment with Jackson and Kurtz Metzger, apologies if I got the name wrong, weighing in. The next day, Jimmy uploaded the whole conversation to YouTube. Jimmy would be the most popular comedian to ever run for president. He would be the first candidate with his own hugely popular online show, something that has only just now become possible due to the rise of the internet and independent media. We believe that Jimmy could win. And not just by becoming president, but by consolidating and organizing a surging populist movement, the kind Ralph Nader described and predicted in his 2014 book, Unstoppable, the Emerging Left Alliance and Dismantle of the Corporate State. Jimmy could win by using the campaign to organize direct actions, by building major new populist party that realigns our politics along class, like the new parties breaking through in Latin America and Europe, by supporting strikes and giving a surging new generation of unions an alternative to cooperation and deaths in the Democratic Party, by showing people that billionaires are to blame instead of the poor, by showing us if change is possible within the electoral system, by striking fear into the hearts of the richest people on earth and making them reconsider the wisdom of cruelty impoverishing so many, by showing millions of Americans what a leader with integrity looks like. This is why Jackson said that Jimmy embodies the political realignment that is happening in this country and should run. It's why Max Blumenthal told me that Jimmy's campaign would give him hope. And it's why Ralph Nader told Jimmy and me that he supports Jimmy running and would advise the campaign. And by the way, a little side note about Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader got a lot of undeserved hate. And since then, the aftermath of Ralph Nader's campaign, which, mind you, he's been wrongly smeared by a lot of people, I have to commend Ralph Nader for actually standing by his convictions. by having a backbone and doing the right thing. Something that Bernie Sanders should learn from. Because at the end of the day, Ralph Nader didn't back down. Bernie Sanders did. In not one, but two presidential campaigns. And now what? There's talk of a 2024 campaign. Have no fears. We'll be talking about that in the rest of the show. Continuing on, and I'm going to love this part, because after all, Jimmy's from Chicago. Jimmy comes from a big family in the south side of Chicago, where he worked as a bricklayer and forklift driver. He starred in 2 Comedy Central specials and built the Jimmy Dore Show with his wife, Steph Zamorino. A former teacher and union leader, Steph, the miserable liberal, produces and stars on the show with him. Through his show, Jimmy has consistently led and been right on the issues like Russiagate, the chemical attack in Syria, the DNC rigging a second election against Bernie. Exactly. The CARES Act bailout for Wall Street, the COVID vaccine mandates and lockdowns, Bernie's spinelessness, the squad's careerism, and the need for a major new populist party free of corporate money. His hashtag Force the Vote campaign reshaped U.S. politics by exposing that even progressives like AOC are quickly corrupted by the Democratic Party, and that's a fact. I mean, these progressives in the Democratic Party, what did you get? You've got nothing so far. It's so sad and weak. The People's Party was the only major party, only major national organization to partner with Jimmy and demand a floor vote for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. When Jimmy asked him about running on the show, Chris Hedges said the media would dredge up something he said or did, or allegedly said or did, and use it to attack him endlessly. He's right. They would do this to any independent populist who truly challenges the corporate state. But as Ralph pointed out, we're in a very different political and media age from when he ran in 2000. We've been through 2 great recessions and a pandemic that were used to crush us and create super billionaires. People are working more, making less, and living worse. Face an institution that's collapsed across society, including the major parties, the media, big business, the banks, the courts, the schools. Trust in government is at historic lows, the number of independents is at record highs, and a majority of Americans want a major new party and an independent candidate for president. The corporate media is now so discredited that their attacks amount to free publicity and rally mass support. Trump and Rogan grew rapidly while being attacked by the media. If their attacks could make Trump president 6 years ago, despite him being the antithesis of his working class voters, imagine what they'll do today for a no bullshit comedian with real populist principles and policies. The way Jimmy triggers liberals, and again he does, is one of the greatest advantages. It gets people rooting for him. The more he's attacked, the more people will tune into his show to see him shred the establishment. In fact, the attacks are why Jimmy is such a great candidate. Comedy can laugh off and flip attacks more effectively than logic and facts. Comedy reduces the establishment to a joke and lets you entertain while you preach. That's why the corporate media attacks against Jimmy have backfired and just made him more popular, including hit pieces by CNN and the Daily Beast. The media also recycles the same attacks over and over again against anyone who defies the establishment, making them trite and predictable. They'll smear him as a conspiracy theorist, right-winger, grifter, anti-vaxxer, racist, sexist, and try a hashtag Me Too him again. But the more the media tries to demonize Jimmy, the more obvious it will become that they have no response to his messages and are trying to destroy someone who speaks for the working class. The more they attack him, the stronger he will become. Even without corporate media coverage, Jimmy will have a greater media reach than any independent candidate in modern history thanks to his show and other independent shows. He already has a million subscribers on YouTube and 500 million views. He's done shows with major podcasters like Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, the former UK former UK member of the Parliament, George Galloway, who just yesterday said that he supports Jimmy running. The Bernie 2016 campaign set off flourishing of independent media as people tuned in for campaign news that corporate media wasn't covering. Jimmy's campaign would launch a second renaissance of independent media, with populist channels growing across many platforms, further replacing corporate media and increasing the movement's resilience against big tech censorship and deplatforming. The absurdity of a jagoff comedian becoming president by being better than legions of serious politicians is the ultimate political statement that perfectly reflects the zeitgeist of this country. Liberals who try to attack him for being a comedian will immediately have to face that their own ultimate global hero is a comedian who ran for president in Ukraine and won. The now ubiquitous internet has also transformed organizing and empowered working class campaigns in unpredicted ways in the last 20 years. Independent YouTube shows and podcasts rival and even exceed the viewership of corporate media. Social media lets us communicate and organize with people directly, bypassing traditional media gatekeepers. Smartphones and apps enable new kinds of mass canvassing. Online crowdfunding allowed Bernie to raise more than $200 million in small and recurring donations on each of his campaigns. Even with the suppression, we have the tools that the movements and campaigns of the past could only dream of. Now look, there's a little bit more in the statement here about why Jimmy should run and why he might be potentially running with the People's Party. And we do have a statement from Jimmy Dore. So I want to just pull up a couple of tweets from the People's Party, if we can just get that set up. So there's, of course, this link from the People's Party. Jimmy Dore would be the most popular comedian to ever run for president, and the first candidate was his own show with 1 million subscribers. Here's how a Jimmy Dore campaign and presidency could revolutionize this country. Hashtag Dore24. Interesting enough, it has already begun to where you do have people who are somewhat triggered by Jimmy running, which I find hilarious and sad because, let's face it, do we go back to the normal politician, the politician who lies to us? For example, let's pull up this tweet right here. The triggered shit-lib temper tantrum to Dore24 has begun. You have a tweet from Jordan Cheriton. LOL, the MPP grift is complete with draft Jimmy Dore. FYI, Moving for People Party sources told me Nick Brana has been floating this as far back as last year while also pushing for Moving for People's Party messaging to copy Dore. Donors unfortunately thought they were building a real third party. Also here, you got Owen Higgins, in touch with the working class as always. Now, that won't be the last of anyone really criticizing Jimmy. But before I read Jimmy's statement, I think, first of all, he hasn't made a clear yes or no answer. He's thinking about it. And already people are triggered by the fact that Jimmy Dore is considering running for president. There's nothing wrong with that. Anyone can run for president, really. And let's look at these so-called experts, these so-called politicians, these people who are in charge, these politicians who've been in office for decades. Case in point, someone like Dianne Feinstein, who's freaking 88 years old. These wise politicians. In fact, let's have democracy in this chat. Type 1 if you have absolute confidence in the system as it is, with the traditional expert, the pragmatic politicians who know what's going on. Type 1 if you trust them. Type 2 if you're tired of it, you're angry, and you want something done. How long have all of us been waiting for something to be done? For a bailout for us? Already there's reports that Ukraine's going to get another $1 billion. But yet we don't have money to feed the poor, to help out small business owners. People are being evicted from their homes and apartments. Everyone has done the right thing. And yet you have Americans working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and now that is not enough. They're having us work until we die or until we're homeless. One bad day, let's say you get struck with an ailment, a disease, or you have cancer or something like that, you go into medical bankruptcy because the insurance companies don't care about us. We're the richest country in the world, and we don't have Medicare for all. So what's wrong with a comedian, Jimmy Dore, running? There's nothing wrong. He has every right to call out the establishment, as do all of you. All of you have a right to be upset at the establishment because they failed you. And I don't care if you're a Republican voter, Democratic voter, independent, third party. I don't care how you vote, who you worship, the color of your skin. Know this, if you live in America, you're being screwed over. And the media and the establishment did it, and we gave them our silent, obedient consent. Stop being silent. Wake people up that they're being scammed by the two-party system. And if you're a diehard Democratic voter, diehard Republican voter, look, your representatives in the United States House and Senate, they don't like you, they don't think about you, they don't respect you. You will never have a seat at the table. Now, I also want to point out, I think it's unfair for people to put too much pressure on the Jimmy, say, hey, run, Jimmy, run. That's a decision he has to make, and it's not an easy decision because a lot can be put upon him. I would like to see a Jimmy Dore campaign. He's from Chicago. He's one of us. Go for it, Jimmy. But to everyone else that's right now trying to smear him or dismantle his campaign or call him a grifter, enjoy it while you can. Because we do have rising inflation. Homelessness in America is becoming a serious issue. We got an opioid crisis. We got so many problems that it's turning into a perfect storm. And if things keep on getting this way, if we trust these careerist politicians, these wonderful, oh so wise politicians, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And to all these people with blue check marks, all these politicians, be they Democrat or Republican, it keeps getting worse and worse like this. You'll be begging like dogs for someone like Jimmy Dore to point your finger at. Because see, Jimmy Dore, he's admitted, he's a jag-off comedian, pothead comedian. But try telling a person, be they man or woman, to calm down when they can't feed their family. Try telling a person to calm down when they lose everything. Try telling a person to calm down when they're in debt and they've done everything right. They played by the rules. Try telling a person to calm down when they're escaping from a climate crisis that's still ongoing. Try telling a person to calm down when they have nothing left to lose. Because that's going to happen if we keep on electing these same damn politicians. That will happen if we keep on supporting the system as is. Because you're going to get aggressive people, angry people that will not negotiate or talk or do these any kind of back and forth stuff on Twitter. We're going to see more people getting hurt. We're going to see more violence taking place in the streets. Jimmy Dore won't be your problem because it'll be everywhere in America if things keep going as they are with the same people who have built this system and let it continue to abuse the people that they're supposed to protect. Jimmy Dore is not the problem, but he might be a solution to it. Long overdue, as are all of you. All of you have a right to step up, to speak out. Don't let these politicians or the corporate media dictate to you what you can and cannot do. They don't like you. They don't respect you. They don't think about you. So why should you do any kind favors for them? You don't owe them anything. They owe you. That's a fact. And that will always be a fact. Because this brutal system that was created by these politicians and their corporate owners, donors, it's going to create more violence. And with these politicians and these people in the suits and ties that supposedly know what they're doing, well, you'll get what you fucking deserve. Because people have been playing by the rules. And I think at long last, it's time for all of us to step up and fight for that better future. We do have the resources to provide for every single American. Medicare for all is possible. UBI is possible. All these things are possible. It's the politicians. And they're also sycophants of the corporate media and the blue checkmarks that are defending them. These politicians make this thing go on, and it's not right. So, as I said before, I have a statement from Jimmy Dore. Long overdue. Sorry to make all of you wait, but I think it's important that we understand what kind of environment we're in and why we do need a Jimmy Dore campaign. So I reached out to Jimmy Dore this morning. I asked him for a statement. I know he was recently on Sabrina's show as well, Sappy Sabs. Check out her show as well. She did an interview with Jimmy as well. So let's go ahead and have the statement from Jimmy Dore. The problems we are facing are not left-right issues. The problems we are facing we can solve if we come together and realize that we have more in common with each other than what the oligarchs want us to think divides us. In fact, that's really the only thing that scares them. Not Republicans or Democrats, not libertarians are progressives, not socialists or communists. What really frightens the ruling class is that people might join together across class lines and realize that our enemy is not our neighbor, but our enemy is the oligarchy. I'm considering running only because the time for that message is ripe. 59% of Americans say they would want an alternative to vote for if their choices were Donald Trump and Joe Biden again. Issues like healthcare, ending the wars, living wage, prescription drug prices, investment in infrastructure, censorship, etc. are not left-right issues. We can solve these problems by coming together, which is why the oligarchy and the corporate media works overtime every day to keep us divided. We share a common enemy, and that is the oligarchy that has rendered workers powerless and treading water. 80% of wage earners live paycheck to paycheck. Half the country can't afford a $500 emergency. These are a direct result of the corporate capture of our government and both political parties. We can only fix this if we come together. The oligarchs know this, which is why they keep us hating each other. It's time for that to end, and time for people to rise up against their corporate masters. I sincerely hope that someone less flawed than me emerges who can carry this message in an effective way. If that does not happen, then I would consider running. Unfortunately, we all know what they would do with someone like me who has been entertaining drunks in nightclubs for 30 years and who has been on video saying outrageous things as an entertainer most of my adult life. If they can make a guy like Joe Rogan, who has never voted Republican in his life and who also endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020, seem like a crazy white supremacist right-winger, imagine what they could do to a guy like me. My sincere hope is that we find someone better than me to carry this message. Our country will continue to spiral downward unless we do so. Now, those are Jimmy's words, and I have an opinion. If he chooses to run, I'll support it. I'll tell you why. I'm tired of the two-party system. I'm tired of this idea of, Bernie Sanders running again for a third time. Right here. Tired of trying to reform a two-party system that will never work. I am tired and exhausted of listening to these corporate pundits, these blue checkmarks telling me to just wait, keep my powder dry. Wait, we gotta trust the system. Wait. Keep on waiting. I'm tired of waiting. How many good people have died because we were told to wait? We don't have Medicare for all. What about all those people who died? They were told to wait. What about all the people who died from poverty? They were told to wait. What about all the Americans who fought in these endless, stupid wars? What about all the people that aren't here with us right now? We have a social obligation to fight for a better future. Not only for the next generation, but for those who came before us, who dreamt of that and never saw it, who aren't here standing with us. Now, it's unfair for all of us to put our hopes onto Jimmy, because again, this is a very serious decision. And already you heard that statement. A lot of things could be turned against him. Corporate media would be relentless. There's so many people on Twitter and social media that would do everything they can to attack him, smear him. But we have to do something. If he chooses to run, cross the Rubicon, Jimmy. People will support you. If not, all of you watching, you have a social obligation to do the right thing too. Things won't get better until we all step up. And if we don't fight for that better future now, what's the point? So, I'll end this segment on a good note. Jimmy Dore 2024. Let's kick this revolution into overdrive. If you make that decision, you got other people with you too, Jimmy. Chicago's with you.